Madison, welcome back to my channel. Today I have my January wrap-up. So the month of January I have a massive wrap-up, But before we get into that, I do have a sponsor for this month's video, and that sponsor is Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a monthly book subscription service where they vet hundreds and hundreds of books each and every month to curate you 5 specific titles that you can pick from that are from new or emerging authors. Book of the Month is also totally risk-free. You do not have to worry about skipping months. There's no penalties whatsoever. But they do only ship within the US. Their box subscriptions are also super affordable, especially for a brand new hardcover book. It is crazy to me. This month's code is BeMine. If you use this, you can get your very first book for just $9.99. Brand new hardcover, $9.99. Oh my god. So I'm gonna show you the 5 books that are currently available for February, including the one that I'm so excited for. Oh my god, you guys have no idea. A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is Rebecca Ross's upcoming adult fantasy book. I love Rebecca Ross. I have her books right here, all of her YA novels. This is her upcoming adult one, which I'm so glad I now have in my hands. This has to do with elemental spirits, childhood enemies who now have to team up together to save their island from missing girls, and I am so here for it. The other books available this month are The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. They are just like a stellar thriller duo, and I always love picking up their books. Their thrillers are always super short and just really easy and bingeable to get through. We also have Vladimir, which I saw this cover and I was like, hello, okay, I'll see what's going on here. But the content matter is not that sexy. It's been a married couple and the guy is an English professor and he's just been caught having an inappropriate relationship with one of his students. I really want to read this actually. I had no idea about this until I got the box. We also have Don't Cry For Me, which follows a man who is currently on his deathbed who decides to finally write letters to his gay son trying to get, amends with him. And lastly, we have Peach Blossom Spring, which is just like this cover. Is gorgeous. I want to frame this cover, but this follows 3 generations of Chinese families as they go through different changes throughout life, starting in 1938. So yes. So those are the 5 books for Book of the Month. Once again, don't forget to use the code BeMine, and thank you so much for sponsoring this video. So like I said, I read 20 books in the month of January. 17 of those were ebooks and 3 of those were physical books. I had 19 adult novels and 1 YA novel. It was a little bit skewed. Genre-wise, we had 10 romances, 3 mafia romances, 1 serial killer romance, and 2 fantasy books. And lastly, for my page count, which is obscenely high this month, because I read some chunky books somehow. I don't know how I did that, but I did. My page count was 6,357 pages. Hot damn. Good job, myself. So without further ado, let's get into rating my books. I always start with the lowest rated books and rate up to my highest rated books. So we're gonna start off with a book that I did not rate. I didn't rate this book because it is a book that I'm working on for work, so therefore I'm not going to be rating it. But it is Wild as the Witch by Rachel Griffin. I read this in one night. It was super quick and easy to get through. It is a contemporary fantasy following Iris, who is a witch in hiding. Something happened a couple years ago and now she's trying to keep her witchiness a secret. Even though in this world people do know that witches exist, they kind of looked down upon. And she ends up writing a curse one day on this guy that she absolutely hates. The only problem is that before she can dispel this curse, an owl swoops in and takes it and flies away with it. And if she does not get this owl and get this curse back from it, it could then get loose and the curse could then actually be augmented and spread around the entire region and turn everyone into witches. So she ends up having to partner up with this guy that she hates, who actually hates witches and doesn't know that she's a witch, to go and track down this owl. And it is so swoony. So this comes out in August of this year, and yes. Next we have my 2-star read for the month. Should it have even been a 2-star? This is The Silver Swan by Amo Jones. I feel so bad because I've heard amazing things about Amo and I want to love her books because she's just a really cool person. But this was not it for me at all. It was really not. And to be quite honest, I read the entire book and I sat there and I go, I still have no idea what I read. From what I remember, it is about a girl who, oh my God, whose dad gets remarried, or is it her mum? Someone gets remarried. She ends up having to move in with her new step family, who includes this guy who is a complete and utter dick to her. and she ends up realizing that him and all his friends are also like kind of like the kings of this school, part of this like king club, and everyone's like, oh, stay away from them, like it's like kind of like culty, and she's like, that sounds like a rumor. Anyway, kind of then starts to get like bullied and attacked by this like group of dudes, and like there's secret society stuff going on and like high school drama toxic stuff, and like I don't recommend it because I still don't even understand what happened. It was like a gigantic bully romance, kind of reverse haremish, but not really reverse haremish, and like I just didn't like, it wasn't done in a way where I was like, oh, he's being mean to her but it's hot. I was like, oh, he's just being mean, like just mean. What the fuck? You know, like something happens and then afterwards she's like, okay, we can go bang now, and I'm like, you want a bit I do not get it. I don't plan on continuing on with this. No, it's not happening. Now moving on to my 3-star reads, we have Just for Tonight by Rilzy Adam. This is a 60-page erotica novelette. I love Rilzy. I always go to her whenever I'm like in a bit of a slump and don't know what to pick up next. She's like my go-to. So this follows these two people. He is the groomsman. She is the maid of honor. It's a very small wedding that's going on. Feel like their best friends are getting married and they've never really interacted with one another, but they end up getting together on the night before the wedding. Yeah, that's it. It's a 60-page thing. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I just say that I highly recommend Rilzy Adams for whenever you need something really quick and smutty to pick up. I always trust her. Some of her books are better than others, but it just depends. But I always end up rating them at least always 3 to 5 stars every single time. We then have The X Effect by Karla Sorenson. This is book 2 in the Washington Wolves series. I did not love this as much as book 1. Book 1 was a total 5-star. This one here is kind of second chancey, which sometimes, most often than not, doesn't work for me. But it was just like okay. It was like a fun read. I do recommend, like there's nothing like bad about this book. It just wasn't like a favorite of mine. So it was just like an average 3 stars. 3 stars, like I say, is still a good rating. Just because I give a book 3 stars doesn't mean you shouldn't pick it up. Especially if you do like the whole idea of like, this girl, she's the PR manager for the Washington Wolves, this like football team, and he is someone who's been brought on as a new recruit to the team, and it turns out that he is actually her sister's ex-fiance from like many years ago. They were like childhood sweethearts, and then she broke his heart, like the sister broke his heart, and like there's just been a lot of tension between them since then, but she has always had a crush on him since like from before everything, and like now they're together and their romance. It was actually really sweet. Like she loves chocolates, like she has chocolate on her all the time, and he ends up setting up a date to take her to a chocolate factory to make her own chocolate, and I was like, that is so cute. It was so cute. But it was really adorable, but it was like kind of average. And then the ending, there was just like some unnecessary drama that went on, and like the whole 3rd act breakup was like a bit like, it just wasn't like anything too special, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to read the 3rd book in it because that is a fake engagement one. I'm like, yes. Okay, moving on to my 4-star reads. First we have Secret Sweet Hunt by Dana Isley. This is book 2 in the One Night series that she's got going on. 4 stars for this one, just because I didn't love it as much as book 1, which was Games We Play, which is like one of my all-time favorite books of forever. So I think I feel bad for Dana because I feel like nothing can live up to how much I love that book. But this was really awesome, especially because this one, obviously it's following each of the guys from the guy friend group throughout each of these books, and what's really cool about Dana's books in this series is that they all are through just the guy's perspective, so you just get the dude's perspective, which is really cool. It's really hot, it's really spunny, it's a second chance romance that actually worked for me. I did like the second chance in this aspect because they were like, they never had a chance to get together when they were kids, and like they never like said their feelings to one another, and then like years have passed and she's like been like hiding from him, and now they've like been reconnected all these years later at like their friend's wedding, the couple from book 1's wedding, and like it's him being like, you got away from me all those years ago, I never got to confess my love to you all those years ago, now that you're back here, now that I'm seeing you again, I'm telling you that I love you and I want to be with you, and I'm not letting you go again, like I will never have that regret on my conscience. And she's like, things happened and I don't know if you'll want to be with me after everything that happened. And like, it was so good. The relationship between them, the sexual chemistry, oh my god, she is the dominant one in the bedroom. and it was so good. The things that she done. Oh, I was like, hello. The scenes that were happening, I was like, I never read this before and I'm into it. Oh, good God. She's like the one and she's like, you have to, oh my God. She's the dominant one in the bedroom. That's all I'm going to say. Trust me, read it. It was so good. We also have another 4-star read, and that is Indigo Reach by Devney Perry. This was so much fun. I'm so excited. I've got book 2 to read sometime soon, but this was amazing. This is the first book in her Eden series. There is a Christmas novella that takes place before this to introduce you to like Quincy, Montana, and like where this small town is. But this is the official book 1. You are following, what's her name? Winslow and Griffin. Now, Winslow has just come to Quincy because she is the new police chief for their town, and she's kind of nervous because she's young and she's a woman, and you know, no one really wants her there because she's technically like an outsider to the small town. And then you have Griffin, he's an Eden, and the Edens basically rule over this small town. They don't rule over it in a way where they're like hoity-toity like rich people. It's just like the Edens is a massive family and have been there for generations. So like they're literally just everywhere. You can't miss an Eden at any of the local shops or anything like that. They're just like everywhere. And he's the eldest Eden brother, and he owns the farm and the ranch and all that kind of stuff. And they end up having a one-night stand together, but don't know who the other person is until like a couple days later, where they end up at a lunch together and they're like, oh good God, this is not okay. Like we didn't like, uh-oh. But they have crazy chemistry and they like cannot stay away from one another. And it is so cute. I was like dying all the time because he's like, I'm like really not that attached to her. But like I did maybe like totally clear out like half of my closet for her anyway. And I'm like, bruh. And she's like, yeah, I'm not that into him. But I mean, like, I've spent like every night the past week at his place, but like that doesn't really mean anything. And I'm like, you guys are obsessed with one another. Don't lie to me. It was so adorable. Plus, there is also mystery that happens throughout the entire of this book because there have been like suicides happening like every couple of years, and no one really thought much of them. But Winslow comes in and is like, this is kind of suspicious. Like this isn't normal for a town of this size to have this many like apparent suicides. And she's like, I think you guys might have a serial killer. Anyway, so she's like looking into that over the course of this book as well. So good. Oh, the perfect blend of like mystery and romance and everything. Small town, deliciousness. Also, this book is hot. Like it's probably like a 2 to 3 stars, but like, just the right amount. Loved it, can't wait to continue on. Another 4-star series is the entire Mindfuck series by Stabby Abby. So this is a 5-book series. I'm just gonna lump them all together as like a complete 4 stars. Some of them were 5 stars, some of them were 4 stars. One of them was like a 3, so like they all averaged out to like 4.5 as like a complete series. So I'm just gonna put the bind up here, even though I read each of them separately. So this is a series where you have Lana, and she is a serial killer, but she's a serial killer that she's getting revenge on people that killed her. They failed to kill her, but she's getting revenge on those people. The only problem is that she ends up actually bumping into this guy one day and has like this intense chemistry with him without realizing that this guy is an FBI profiler. Now, he's not just an FBI profiler, you guys. He's an FBI profiler for serial killers. That's right. He's actually hunting her down. Obviously, he doesn't know it's her because like this girl is smart. She also has a partner, this guy, like this computer geek whiz partner of hers who like helps her with everything, and they're like a tag team. Oh, best serial killer duo in the world. Love them to death. They're only best friends platonic, but love them. Anyway, so it's their romance together while she's still serial killering and he's still like FBI profilering, and they're like also together. It is so good. It is definitely a dark romance. But the thing is like, in my opinion, like, yes, it's a romance, but it's more so about Lana's revenge plot over the course of these 5 books and her like character arc and her journey as a person, because like she had kind of like basically given up on life apart from her revenge until she meets him and is like, oh, maybe there is something me to live for after I've completed my revenge plan. And like, it's dark in the sense of like the killings and like the way that she serial kills is extremely descriptive. She castrates each and every single one of her victims, each and every single one of them. Huge triggers in this, by the way, for like sexual assault and abuse and trauma, and like literally like every single trigger warning is probably in this book. There's knife play, but not knife play in the sexual sense, knife play in the I'm murdering you sense. there's just a lot of stuff that goes on. And it was kind of funny because everyone's like, oh my God, so many trigger warnings in this book. And my dumbass is sitting here like, you know what? The sexual scenes like are only like a 2 out of 5 on the spice scale. Like I don't really think it's like that like content warning for like the kinks. And then I realized that they were saying there was trigger warnings for like the killings and like the murder parts of this. And I'm like, do I really watch like that much serial killer true crime stuff that I'm like desensitized to all this? I was like, oh, you mean the part where she cuts off their dinglings and shoves them down their throats before murking them? Oh, right. I didn't think that would be a content warning, but that's a pretty good point. There's also content warning in this for pedophilia and child abuse, like that kind of, there's a lot of dark shit. Like she goes after people who had like raped and abused her and like all that kind of like, there's just a lot of stuff. So do look up the triggers for those kind of things, but I freaking loved it. It was such an enjoyable series. I read it like, I stayed up until 4 a.m. to finish this entire series. Highly recommend this series if you think you can handle the serial killer aspects of it, because it's really not that spicy of a romance. Okay, another 4-star we have from Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. If you recently saw my vlog, you'll have most of my thoughts on this, so I'm not going to go too into depth, but this is an enemies to lovers romance between Jasmine and Ivan Lukov. They are both figure skaters. He is like the golden boy of the figure skating world. He has like won literally every single thing that you could. He's like the #1 person. Like no one's beating him. No one is beating him, okay? And she, on the other hand, is always coming second place. She's never fully won anything, doesn't have anything to show for it. And after 16 years, she's thinking about retiring until Ivan and his team come to her and ask her to be his pairs partner for this upcoming season. And she agrees. She hates him, but she agrees because she's like, this is the only way I could possibly ever win gold before I decide to retire. And so it's 2 of them having to team up for that. A huge hate to love romance in it. Once again, Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn. Nothing happens between any of them until at the 96% mark, which is a bit obscene. I was expecting at least the 80% mark. The only thing with my problem with this romance is that I think it lost a lot of its like growth because of the fact that you didn't have Ivan's POV. Just having Jasmine's POV wasn't enough for this romance because the romance kind of, in my opinion, got lost with everything else. With everything that she's going through and all of her personal journey and like the figure skating aspect of it. Like I was a little bit like sad at the fact that like they spent like 90% of the book like training together and then you got like one competition and then that was it. You didn't even get like their full like actually, you never actually saw them competing together, which really sucked in my opinion. Like I was hoping for a bit more than that. Like it felt like we got all this build up and then like a lot of the payoff didn't actually end up happening. And I read another Mariana Zapata book, which I'll get to in a second, that I loved and I gave 5 stars to, and the payoff was worth it. And like, even though like the characters interacted the same in both the books, like the guy and the girl were like together the entire time and were like bickering and there was like enemies to lovers, it just wasn't the same level. And from Lukov with Love, it was definitely a bit more muted. So it was a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it, but like, it's not like a new favorite of mine. Like it's probably technically a 3.75 stars, but I don't want to be like a bit of bitch about it. So I'm gonna leave it like as a 4. Because like there were times that were really, like there were times where I was like laughing at it and having a lot of fun. It's just after reading the other book, it just didn't live up to it. So yeah. And my last 4-star read is Claimed by Cupid by Dana Isley. I love Dana so much. Such a babe. Such a babe. Okay, so this is the second book in Nick and Holly's series. You don't have to read them in order, obviously, but I think it is nice. This is a holiday series that Dana is doing, so each and every single holiday, you get to follow what Nick and Holly are up to. So first we had Dipped in Holly, which was their Christmas one, and then Claimed by Cupid is their Valentine's Day one. Super, super fun. It's an age gap between Holly and Nick. He is like an older silver fox. She's like a young 20-year-old. Really, really great romance. She's also plus size. There's a lot of talk about that in these books too. This one focuses on the progression of their relationship and it's just fun and smutty. So if you're looking for something for Valentine's Day, highly recommend this. I can give it my single Pringle seal of approval. Yes, single Pringle seal of approval. Say that 12 times fast. You gotcha. Also, there is some toy play in this and I'm always a fan of toy play. It's actually public toy play. Public play with toy play. Bit of a mixture. Okay, now moving on to my 5 stars. Since I was just talking about Mariana Zapata, I might as well start with, oh, I have the book actually. I bought it. I loved it so much that I bought it. I'm about to go through and like highlight and tab it from my Kindle copy into this because that is how much I love this book. I love this book so much. I was like, I'm gonna buy a physical copy get my Kindle out and sit there and highlight all the things that I loved in this book. That is how much I loved this. And I think it's because of how much I loved this that From Lukov with Love was like, compared to it. But this is grumpy sunshine, small town, he's a mountain man, she's this broken divorcee, and their romance was perfection. This follows Aurora, and she's recently divorced. Her husband was this really famous, not rock star, country music star. Was he country music? What the hell? What did he sing again? Her husband was a famous musician, okay? But he never like formally like approved of her like in the spotlight. So she was like his secret wife for like 10 years. They were married, but the entire world did not know about it and no one even knew who she was. So they get divorced for reasons that you find out about during the book. And she ends up moving back to this small town in Colorado where she used to live with her mum. And her mum passed away many years ago. And so she moves back there, but she ends up renting this garage apartment. And when she gets to this garage apartment, this big burly mountain man with like a gun at his hip walks into the apartment and goes, "Why are you breaking and entering?" And she's like, "What do you mean, why am I breaking and entering?" He's like, "You're breaking and entering." And then this scrawny teenage boy comes up and goes, "Dad, please don't be upset." And he's like, "What do you mean don't be upset?" And he's like, "I might have rented this out as an Airbnb." And he goes, "Why would you do that?" And he's like, "Because we need the money." And so they end up agreeing to let her stay. And he's like, "You can stay, but I do not want to see you ever." He's like, "You have to be a silent tenant." And she's like, "You won't hear a peep from me." And he's super gruff and grumpy towards her, and like he's been hurt in the past, like he doesn't want anything to do with anyone else, he just wants to keep to himself. And she's like, "I don't want to upset him, but oh my god, is he chopping wood shirtless outside? Hot damn." Like, oh. It's such a sweet romance because like she's been made to feel like shit after all these years, but she's such a beautiful person, such a beautiful soul. And he's like such a grumpy, beautiful soul too. And the two of them together, it was just so beautiful because I loved watching them. Oh my god. This is such a beautiful, beautiful romance. I was like dying consistently while reading this. The things that he would say to her, amazing. Like the tent scene, the camping scene, the camping scene, the camping scene. Oh my god. And when they finally had their first kiss, I was like, oh my god, they had their first kiss. It was so cute. And then the first time together, Mariana Zapata wrote a really hot, like sexy scene in this. They only got together, had the doo-doo once, but it was hot. Highly recommend this Mariana Zapata book, especially if you love grumpy sunshine and you love small town romances. You will dig the crap out of this. And also, this is gonna be kind of funny. I know what book I'm gonna talk about next, but I've always said that I don't like books to do with like rock stars and musicians, but this book kind of has that as like an undertone, and I didn't mind it. I actually kind of liked it. So yeah. Now I say that I've actually always avoided, I don't know why, because I think I read a couple like 10 or 15 years ago that I just did not like that had to do with rock stars and famous musicians, and I was like, I don't think I like this as like a subgenre to my spicy romances. I'm wrong. I lied to myself. I lied like so many times because this is exactly that and I loved it. This book is like 700 and something pages. Ashley sent it to me randomly and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And my Kindle had just died, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just pick this up and give it a shot. And I read half this book in one night. I finished this book in 2 days, a 700-page book in 2 days. And I was like, how did I do that? Oh my god. This book is so addictive, it's not even funny. And I found that's the case with all of Ashley's books, is that her books are super, super freaking addictive. Now, this book is not gonna be for everyone. It has a bit of a toxic relationship in it. And there's also a lot of content warnings in this for fat phobia and bullying and substance abuse and death of a loved one and like sick parents and car crashes. Like there's a lot of triggers in this. But I specifically want to harp on the triggers for fat phobia and bullying because they are super, super prominent, and my heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. Okay? Breaking. Million pieces. You getcha? Good. So in this you have Lennon and Phoenix. Now the first 20% follows them when they are seniors in high school, and Lennon is fat and she's bullied by everyone and no one likes her and she's just really depressed about everything, but she's super, super smart. And then you have Phoenix and he's like the bad boy, poor boy from the other side of the tracks who's super gorgeous. And he is currently flunking English, and unless he somehow passes it, he won't be able to graduate high school. And so the English teacher ends up recruiting Lennon to help tutor him, and she agrees, and she ends up tutoring him, and she ends up finding out that he's actually has dyslexia, even though he refuses to admit it because he thinks that it's like people are going to think that he's dumb and stupid because of his dyslexia, and that's like a huge part of this as well. So they end up connecting through that until he ends up severely betraying her, and she's like, I will never trust you ever again, and she's like heartbroken. And then it takes place 4 years later when like other events have happened, and Lennon ends up being contacted by Phoenix's like music team to be brought on as his sober companion during their US tour, because he's like now their super famous musician, but you know, his bandmate recently died and he blames himself, and because of that he's like fallen into this like spiral of like alcohol and drugs and sex and like just like messed up PR stuff. And so she's been brought on, and they're giving her a crap ton of money to do this tour for the next couple of weeks to look after him, and she agrees to it because that she's like, I can do this, I hate him, like it's not going to be a problem. Throughout the course of this, it's just a super angsty romance of like the two of them being like, we can't be together, like our relationship is super toxic, but also like I'm so in love with you, and like I know that I messed up, and like what can I do to like bring you back from this. It's definitely like a long story, and the payoff is definitely worth it if you can get through that, because it ends up being quite a beautiful love story, even though it is so heartbreaking and so hard to read at times. It's also hilarious too, like there are so many moments in this I was laughing my ass off. Like you literally go through 17,000 emotions. Like I have never read a book and gone through so many emotions. I'm like laughing 1 second, then like depressed and want to go cry a river the next, and then I'm like, oh my god, it was like everything you can emotion, like, oh my god, I loved it. So don't want to go too far into like everything else because I don't want to spoil anything, because like there's a lot that goes on in this. Like it is dramatic. This is a dramatic ass book, okay? So just trust me when I say that I loved it, and there were just so many, like listen, look, I just literally opened to this one line. Phoenixes are supposed to rise from the ashes, but this one wants to burn. And like, it's just, oh my god, I love this book. It like, had such an impact on me, like such a visceral impact. Highly recommend. Next we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is a adult fantasy book, but is a great bridge between YA and adult because it does have a lot of YA feelings to it. So in this we're following Xingyin, and she is the daughter of the Moon Goddess, and she's the secret daughter of the Moon Goddess. No one actually knows that she exists, and when her magic accidentally flares up, she has to flee the moon because she doesn't want her mum to get caught from like giving birth to her, and she ends up in the Celestial Kingdom. Now she's there and she's like under a secret identity, so no one knows who she is and her powers, until she ends up actually being brought on as the Crown Prince's companion. And she's obviously can't be with the Crown Prince because the Crown Prince is the Crown Prince of the Celestial Kingdom, and his mum and dad are the people who imprisoned her mum in the first place. So she's discovered she's screwed, but she kind of starts falling for the Crown Prince, and then ends up discovering that there is a way that she can actually win a favor from the Celestial King, and that will allow her to then get her mum free from her exilation. And so it's her journey to like kind of get this favor from the king, and like her whole journey doing that. And like there's a lot that goes on in this, and I don't want to spoil it because like the basic synopsis of this book is just like, I don't want to give anything away because like you learn so much. Like it's an adult fantasy book, and I feel like the one thing with adult fantasies is everything starts off one way and then shit hits the fan, and next thing you know, like the character has to do like all this other stuff, and like there's like kind of a love triangle but not really a love triangle, and there's like all these different magic systems, and it's just so beautifully written. Like this book is so atmospheric and so gorgeous, and like you're watching Xingyin as she's like transforming over the course of these like years. Like it takes place over the course of like 15 years, this book, and how she's like coming into her own and like gaining her own strength and her own like confidence, and like her like absolute loyalty to her mom and her family, and how like desperate she is to like prove herself. It's so beautiful. I loved it to death. Highly recommend it. Like one of the best fantasy books I've read in the last couple of months, hands down. Please pick this up. We then have Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. I'm still waiting for my finished copy to come in. So sad. But this is book 3 in the Twisted series. You can read them as standalones, but I really don't think you should, because you won't understand a lot of the things that have happened. in my opinion. So this is an enemies with benefits relationship between Josh and Jules. This is also a best friend's brother romance because Josh is Ava's brother and Jules is Ava's best friend, and Ava is the main character from book 1. And so Josh is a resident physician working in like the ER, and Jules is studying to become a lawyer. She's a law student. And the two of them have hated each other since the first book for really like no proper reasons. Like things have just come up, and as a result they've just like always had this very like enemies relationship until like they've kind of started to realize that there might be a bit more there, and they're getting a bit sexually attracted, so they agree to have an enemies with benefits romance. And as we all know, once you start doing the do with someone you hate, turns out those hateful feelings are love. So it's their relationship. It's super, super hot. The banter in this is A+. Josh in the bedroom, oh my stars, that man has a mouth on him. Huh. There's also a blackmail subplot throughout this to do with Jules and like what she's struggling with and like her past, which is actually quite dark and like something that we've never known about but has been alluded to throughout the first 2 books, and like how she's dealing with that blackmail situation. And so really recommend that you read the Twisted series. It feels like Anna is getting better with each and every one of her books that she's written. Like book 1 was 4 stars, the second book was like 4.5 stars, this one was a 5 star, and then the next one probably be like a 5.5 stars, just gonna guess with the way that we're going with our current traction. Okay, now moving on to the last 3 books, and they're kind of tough to talk about because they're part of a series, but I'm gonna try my best. We have The Rebel, The Bully, and The Spy by Sophie Lark. These are books 2, 3, and 4 in the Kingmakers series. I recommend that you do not read the Kingmaker series before you read the Brutal Birthright series, but I'm not gonna spoil anything by talking about these, I promise. Now, the Kingmaker series is basically a university that is set on this like secluded island that is just for mafia children to go to so they can hone their mafia skills. There are 4 different like places you can be in. You can be an heir, a spy, an enforcer, or an accountant, and you can only be in the heirs program if you are the heir to a mafia family, and then everything else is just if you're a mafia child, you can be enrolled in one of the other ones. It's really fun series. It's so worthwhile. The way that there's like a plot that kind of runs throughout all 4 of these books, plus that goes back into the Brutal Birthright series and her Underworld series. Everything connects in the very last book here, which is The Spy. There is going to be a 5th book coming out, but it can be read as a standalone compared to the other ones because it takes place after this main storyline finishes. But here we have The Rebel. This is Miles, Griffin, and Zoe. It is a forbidden romance because Zoe is currently engaged to be married to someone, and in the mafia world, if you're engaged to someone, there's really not much you can do about it. However, Miles ends up falling in love with her and is like, I'm going to get her out of this relationship. I'm going to find a way to make her mine instead. And it's just so amazing. I love Miles to death. It was such an intense book as well because so many things end up going down towards the end of this, and Miles and Zoe are such a beautiful romance because like she's such a strong woman but has just been battered down her entire life and like made to be like the complacent mafia princess, and Miles is like the heir to the Griffin family. He gives negative shits about anything but suddenly starts to give a shit about Zoe, and I loved it. Then we have The Bully, which I think is my favorite book in this series. While these are all 5 stars, these 3 books, this is like a 6 out of 5 stars. Putting that out there. Now this is Dean and Kat's book. Kat is the sister of Zoe, and Dean has been the antagonist over the last 2 books, and this is his like anti-hero like redemption arc in this book. Oh my god, this book took me by surprise because Dean does some messed up stuff. Some messed up stuff in book 1. He's not a nice person, and you sit there and you go, don't really like you. And then, you know, oh my god, you think that. And then you read this book and you're like, wow, I love you, I protect you, I want to marry you, I want to have you. And like, he was just so amazing. So this is a bully romance. I mean, it's called The Bully, but between Dean and Kat, because Dean in book 2 catches something that Kat does, and so he ends up using it to blackmail and make her like his gopher over the course of this book. And it is their romance and everything that they go through, and it's so intense, so beautiful. This also has some of the hottest scenes I have read in my entire life. Oh my god, I loved them so much. I was like, am I into this? I'm into this. And I was like, does it actually happen? Is that physically possible? Do I have to Google this? I had to Google some of the stuff that happened in this book because I was like, is that actually physically possible? And I was like, oh my god, it is. This also brings back in characters from the Underworld series, which I loved. I don't want to get into it, but I loved seeing them again, and oh my god, one of my favorites. You actually get to see a lot of the underworld characters in this book, now that I think about it. So that's why you need to read that series too before you get into this. And then lastly, we have The Spy. This is the culmination. The Spy has been a character that you have been introduced to and you don't know who he is. And then you end up finding out his identity in this book. I managed to figure it out because I am a smart cookie. Not everyone does figure it out, but if you read all of her books, you are able to figure it out, which is how I was able to do it. This was so amazing. And like, while our main romance between the hero and heroine in this is very vital, I can't even explain this book without spoiling it. There's like a whole other plot in this that is so prominent and so beautiful that I loved the crap out of. And like, this is about who the spy is and what he has been building towards the last 4 years, because each of these books takes place over a year in the school. And so it's what he's been doing these last 4 years, what his entire goal was, why he's the spy, and like, it was so cool. The heroine in this was also really awesome. She was pretty badass. I liked her. But like I said, their main romance is a bit overshadowed by something else that happens in this, which was totally worth it and it made so much sense, and I love the crap out of it. So that's all I'm gonna say. I will be actually doing a video on Sophie Lark and how to read her, my guide to Sophie Lark, in March when The Savage comes out, which is the last book in this series, because I want to do like a whole tier ranking thing, but I don't want to do it before I get to that book. Even though I know The Savage is going to be like a 12 out of 5 stars, I still want to wait for it because that's Sabrina's book, and Sabrina is the daughter of my favorite couple from the Brutal Birthright series. Anyway, but yeah, that's it for this month's video. Tell me which one of these books I made you want to read. And yeah, if you guys want to see more of me, please go to my channel down below. If you want to, is that what I say? And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye-bye.